Good morning. Good morning. This is the Checkin In podcast, episode 30. We've made it to 30 episodes. Amazing. Thanks for being here today. Hello, my dear friends coming on the TikTok, the Instagram, and the YouTube live streams. Glad to see you all. This is the Checkin In podcast, episode 30. Today is August the 12th, 2021. My name is Biniam, for those of you who are coming in and are not familiar with me. I'm a kindologist. That's a made-up term that I have for myself. I should put that on my business card because one of the things I want to have as my brand is kindness. And so this is what I want to model and display in the midst of all my engagements and interactions, is this element of kindness that I don't think is presently abundant in the world today. And I think we could use a lot more of it. And so this podcast exists for three reasons. Number one, I want to grow in self-awareness of myself. I want to grow in self-awareness of what makes me me. And I do this by asking a lot of self-reflective questions. I answer one per day, every weekday on this podcast. And as I answer that, I also want to learn to be kind to myself. I want to learn to be kind to myself because that's something that most of us struggle to do, is to be gracious with ourselves. To be gracious with how to treat ourselves as we work our way through life. Each of us, by way of being human, we've got fumbles along the way, right? We've got things that we're trying to work on. And so this is my way of trying to ensure that I am being gracious as I go through. And then finally, I want to maximize my happiness, my experience of happiness. And I do so by working through all the other uncomfortable emotions, or practicing to do so. So those are the three things I like to try and focus on as I present this podcast. The Checkin In podcast is my way of checking in with you on a daily basis and seeing how are things going and how can I model for you what could be as we engage going forward. So I'm glad to have you. If you'd like some more information about how to connect with me and to work even closer with me, I got my website, biniamashis.com. I'll mention a little bit more about that at the end of the episode. But for now, this is the Checkin In podcast. Welcome. Glad to have you all join in. So, in reference to today's topic, today's question, I usually take a self-reflective question and analyze it and then answer it myself. I'm just seeing everyone coming in here. Hello, friends. I'm getting asked some questions of what people should do. You guys can do whatever you'd like with your friends. It sounds like fun if you're going to go for golf. I'd be a hell yes to that for sure. Let me see if I can just scroll up here. Good to see some of my old friends on there. Do you have headphones that match every outfit? I don't. It's just coincidental that today's headphones match my shirt. So, no, these are the ones I often use. Long time no see. Yes, there will be Uber today. I'm going to go to work after my podcast recording here. So that's the plan. However, in the meantime, I would love to be able to go through today's episode answering the question, the question today is, do you love your job? Do you love your job? So that's the question we're answering today. On this podcast, do you love your job? It seems like a simple question. I'm excited to answer and give you my own response. But let me just break that question apart a little bit, because I think there's some benefits to considering the questions that we're being asked to answer. And so this question today, do you like your job? I like it because it's one of those questions that has us presently in the present moment right now. Do you like your job? I have worked for very many kinds of diverse jobs. I've done many different things along the way. It's hard to think in my 4 decades plus of existence how much I've been able to do. There's been such a variety of jobs, from very physical to not so physical. And in the midst of them all, something I've noted along the way, something I've observed as I've gone along, is how many of the beautiful people that I got to work alongside, amazing people that I got to work alongside. I don't love my job now, says Connor, but I will love my job that I will have in the future. Nice, you're working towards something, which is great. I've seen so many people, Connor, who are, how can I say this? They work at their job for many years, but the job continues to sap life out of them. It just continues to deplete them. It gets them into that zone where they're like, this is not this is not reflective of what I want to be investing my life towards. So I've seen this element in so many people that I've come to work alongside, or maybe even seen in the midst of their own work context. And these people are they're not happy at their work. And so one of the things I noted as I watched this, one of the things I noted was how I want my experience to be a little bit different. I wanted my experience to be different in the sense that whatever I committed myself to work wise, I was totally going to be so invested in it. I was going to be so ecstatic that I was at that job. That I wanted the response to be, I can't believe I get paid to do what I'm doing for work. That's what I was aiming for in my own job context. So I like this question because it gets us in that present mode right now, in real time right now. Are we enjoying what we're doing? So I think this is a really important question because life is short. Life is short. And life being so short, it would be such an unfortunate thing for us to squander it, for us to see these moments passing by doing something that doesn't fill us with satisfaction and contentment or purpose or exhilaration. It would be really sad to watch moments that we can't get away. Like, here's the thing, you guys are sitting with me in this podcast and you're spending some time listening to what I have to say. If this isn't worth your while, you're wasting your time. You're wasting through your time. You can't get back these moments that you're sharing with me right now. And so I would say, what is it in these present moments, if we can keep ourselves aware in the present moments, that is going to be worth our while? That when we look back on it, we're like, that was good investment of time. So I like the reflections I have of my past experiences in my job because it informs my present. At this moment, do I like my job? Do I love the job that I do? It gets me in the moment of considering and saying, is this the best investment of my time? Hamza says, your videos make my day. Such an incredible person, so calm and happy all the time. Thank you, Hamza. You're so gracious. So, as I think about the job context right now, jobs are one of those things that we give so much of our life to, aren't they? We devote so much time of our life to our jobs because as we commit to it, this is how we're able to earn money to be able to do the things that we want to do in life. But some people are still in the former way of thinking from past generations where we're not talking about a conversation of contentment, a job. It's just a conversation of, do you have a job? Period. Back then, jobs were perhaps a bit more scarce in that we didn't have we didn't have a lot of the things we enjoy today by way of job satisfaction and an availability of jobs in very different spheres. And so you chose something that was going to lock in that provision aspect. You're able to put bread on the table for your family and you're able to have a roof over your head. That was just a very plain sort of commitment of saying, here's what the job is all about. It's just practically to make sure that we can survive. We have a roof to sleep under and we have food to put on the table, period. That's all we need to consider. That was what it was once upon a time. Thankfully, we don't live in such a time when it is that dire for us to survive, whereby we can only commit to one job and lock into that job, regardless of if we enjoy the job or not. We live in a time right now where it is where we can have the conversation of, do we enjoy it? Not do we have it, but do we enjoy it? There's plenty of jobs out there for us to choose. And for some of us, we have to work hard to get certain posts that we want to get to. But this question of, do you like your job, sure gets us in that frame of reference of saying, how can we measure time and the value of time by the way we're enjoying it? As you know, one of the pillars of this podcast is, how can we maximize our happiness? How can we experience more happiness? Even in relation to this question, do we like our job? Do we presently like our job? What do we know about ourselves? Self awareness that helps us to be able to make the decision of where we're going to plant ourselves career wise or work wise in a way that we can say, yeah, this is time well spent for me. This is something that I enjoy investing myself in. This is where I want to park myself for some time because I find the work that I'm doing here to be beneficial. That is, I think, what I'm thinking of when I think of this job or this question. Do you like your job? Or I even want to go further and say, do you love your job? Do you feel like you're doing something that is of importance, something that continues to inspire and encourage you? Or are you in a work context that is like, it's not the greatest. It's not filling up your tank. It's not enabling you to have that sense of this is meaningful, this is purposeful for me. Something else I also really appreciate as I reflect on this question is as I learned from others and watched them, I saw the effect that the job has on them. I saw the effect that it had on them, and it wasn't always the best effect. I saw the effect whereby, as they committed to their job or their career or whatever it looked like, they seemed more like a shell of what could be. There are some job contexts. Maybe they enjoyed it once upon a time when they started, but over time it just started to lessen in its in their interest for the job. Um, so they may have engaged in the career or the job that they really wanted to do, but over time the the enthusiasm depleted to the point that now it's just they kind of exist there. They bear with it, they endure it is probably a good way of saying it. And so it's a really sad thing to see. Maybe they never liked the job in the first place, but it's just like I said, a means for income. I know a lot of people who choose a job based on how much money they can earn in that job. And so they say, I can earn a lot of money, so I'm going to do the job regardless of if I enjoy it because I can get a lot of money. What I think of in these contexts is that money is not always going to be an issue. Right now, it may be an issue, and you're thinking this is the most important thing. I can get lots of money. But at some point in the midst of working that job, the money isn't going to be as stressful for you in the acquisition of it. So, my question is, where do you pivot to from there when the money isn't an issue anymore? And now you're still in this job that you've locked yourself into? Do you still love the job? So, those are some thoughts I was thinking about in relation to this question here of how the job can affect you based on if you enjoy it or not. And if you don't enjoy it, it's going to take away your enjoyment of the rest of your life. You'll be working at it. You'll come home at the end of the day and you'll be depleted because the energy took out of you. And you'll be in that zone of mind where you're like, this is really like not filling me up with inspiration and happiness and so on. And so you sort of like, you sort of suffer through the off time because of the job that you have to go back to in the on time again. And that's a really challenging dynamic. But if you can choose a job that you actually love, it continues to fill you up in an amazing way while you're on the job, and when you're off the job, you're still thrilled because you're in this amazing mind space, right? And the importance of choosing well this job, this career, this whatever you're going to commit yourself to, and being open along the way if that shifts where you're not enjoying it anymore to say, hey, I can look at other options as I go along here. I can prepare for other options so that I can get to a place where I really love it. Some questions that are coming in. Was I born in Canada? No, I was born in Africa. I moved to Canada when I was young. And how are you, Ian? Nice to see you, brother. So, yes, these are some of the things that I reflect on when I think of the importance of loving one's job. And that's why when I'm in my Uber rides, I love finding out what job they do. Why? Because I want to understand, do you enjoy what you're doing? Is this something that fills you up? Is this something that you are presently committed to with a hell yes? Or is it something that you're like, it's something I just do. And then I try to think of how can I encourage or inspire this individual to consider what could be, what is that thing that you would love to do if you could do it for a job? Because, like I was saying, time is so short. And once it's gone, these moments that we're spending, and we spend a lot of moments at our jobs, that could be seen as such a waste of a lifetime. I've talked to people who look back on their career with regret because they're like, yeah, it never got that spot that I wanted it to get to. And so it makes me sad when I see that. But now let me get to my answer to this question. The question, do you love your job? Do you like your job? And mine is hell yes. I love the job that I do. In fact, I love sharing about my experiences at the job that I love. Some people look at my job that I do presently and they're like, aren't you sure you could do better than that? I mean, that seems like such a simple job. Some people look at my academic background and they say, you could do so much more. Why do you settle for this? Well, let me tell you. Presently, if you do not know, I am an Uber driver. I call myself playfully an Uberologist, in addition to a kindologist. As an Uberologist, I love applying myself to my craft and my job. I like being the best that I can be as an Uber driver. I like amping up the service that I offer to my riders when they get in my vehicle. I want their experience to be overwhelmingly positive. I want it to be overwhelmingly positive. I want them to be able to walk away thinking, I didn't expect that from an Uber ride. And I want that to impact them in a really deep way. That is simple Uber ride could transform their experience in life or their perspective in life. And so I love what I get to do. Why do I love it? Because it gives me access to people. I know one of the things that I love is people. I love watching how people interact and relate and communicate. I like watching the dynamic socially when this happens with people where they communicate in such a really fantastic way that they sort of coalesce, or when their communication patterns are actually really awful and they do a lot more of butting heads. I love observing all that because I want to understand how can we connect better as people. So, my happy place is watching people interact and connect, learning and understanding what are the best ways that we can connect with one another. And then, in the midst of watching those interactions, uh, participating in it and making it even better. I love connecting with people in such a way that they're like, this is good. I like this kind of engagement. I like this kind of way of being connected to because it reminds me that I'm human and in my humanity, I can connect in a really meaningful way with others. So this brings me tremendous happiness. I love my job. I choose my job specifically because I have so many freedoms to do what I do best. What do I mean? What do I mean by that? I mean the following. There are so many who come along and say, with your skill set, you could become an amazing psychologist or a counselor or a therapist or a life coach or all these helping professions. They say you could do so amazing at these. I've had police officers say, we would love to have you on our force. Why? Because I'm able to connect with people in a real tangible way that hits the right spot where people feel safe enough to talk and communicate and open up. So, as I consider all these inputs, I say I'm not interested in any of these other expressions because there are parameters in which I'd have to play within that I may not always sign on for, that I may not always be happy with. There may be things that are expected of me on these jobs that I'd be like, this continues to put limits on me that I don't want to have imposed. And so I love the freedom. I love a job that gives me the freedom to express myself the way I feel inclined to be able to do what I do best, and that's connecting with people. And so in my role as an Uber driver, a simple job, yes, a simple job where I drive people from point A to point B, I've got fantastic freedom to be able to say, here's why this is really important for me. Here's why I'm able to go forward in such a way whereby I'm able to really encourage and listen and inspire them towards something else. And so doing this gives me that sense of fulfillment that I'm able to touch someone's life in such a deep way, in an unexpected way. They're coming into my Uber expecting just to be driven, maybe for some light chatter, but when they get hit with a deep level of conversation and engagement that affirms them and whom they are and that helps them feel safe to open up and share some of the things that they never thought they would share with anyone else in the context of an Uber ride. Wow, I'm in my happy place then. I'm in my happy place then. This is like something so ecstatic. Like it makes me feel so thrilled. My previous jobs that I've done along the way, I've also enjoyed immensely. Let me give you a few of them here. I used to be a teacher. I taught English. Love my job as an English teacher. I love connecting with my students. I love seeing them grow in their ability in what I was teaching them, but also I love connecting with them on a personal level. I used to be a pastor once upon a time. Love my job as a pastor in church when I was a pastor. I think I did really well at connecting with people there and teaching. I think I was a good teacher. I used to be a truck driver. I loved that job because it gave me time to listen to audiobooks all day long while I was on the road. I used to be a tree planter at one point. Loved that job. It was hard, but it was a kind of physical job that took a lot out of you, but I was able to get to a place where I was really competent, and I was so thankful that I was able to work hard enough to get to that point where I was like, I made it. I used to be a bag boy at a grocery store. Loved that job. Such a simple job, and yet I was able to make a name for myself in my community. I was really well known in my small city there because of my role as a grocery bag boy. I got to meet people and I got to make them feel something that they kept coming back and expressing their appreciation. And from such a simple position as a bag boy at a grocery store, I was able to make a huge impact there in that community and experience an element of fame, an element of being popular. And so I was able to learn, even at that stage, how to be able to present myself and how to engage socially. And so that was really important for me. I used to For the longest time, one of my longest standing jobs was being a paper boy. I delivered papers right up into my grad studies at university from the age of 12. That's a long time there that I was delivering papers for. Loved my job as a paper boy. Didn't always love it, but I got to a point where I loved it because, again, of the people I got to serve, the service I got to extend, the level of value I got to add to those that I was delivering papers for. So I worked really hard at that and I became an amazing paper boy. I delivered papers by large amounts, like hundreds to thousands of papers at a time that I delivered. That was one of my main ways of earning income to get through school and so on like that. And so that was a fantastic job that I really enjoyed. So many things that I've done along the way that I found tremendous value. Now were some jobs that I absolutely hated. Oh, I was like, oh, this is not the right place for me. One of those was I used to work on the oil rigs here in Alberta. And at that time, I came to the Royal Oil Rigs just because I needed to earn income. That was a really challenging place to work. Why? Because in most jobs, when you start in most jobs, they usually go easy on you at the beginning to help you come up to speed with the requirements of the job, and they help you and patiently share with you, here's what's necessary to do this job well. Well, on the oil rigs, it was exactly opposite. On the oil rigs, when I went onto the oil rigs, they kind of hit you from the get go. They just pounce on you. They don't make it easy at the beginning. They just kind of jump all over you if you don't get it right off the bat. And it's really abrasive place to work, really difficult place to work. And so there I experienced a lot of really challenging moments. I was often asking myself, is this really worth it? I mean, I'm getting paid really well, but is the money worth it? Because this really sucks right now. This really is painful, and I'm not enjoying this experience at all. So that was my time on the oil rigs. It was extremely brutal. It was challenging. Whew. But after a few months of suffering in the midst of that job, while I tried to work really hard and kept feeling like I was messing up and I wasn't sure I had what it takes, eventually I got really good at the job there and I was able to connect with the guys there in meaningful ways. So by the end of my time on the oil rigs, it got better. It got better, but it was a challenging place to be. So I have done a lot by way of work over the years, so many different work contexts. Let me see if I can pick up some similarities that I experienced over the job. For me, the job was an excuse to connect with people. The job was an excuse to connect with people. This is really powerfully put in a quote that I'm going to tell you in just a moment by this owner of a business about 2 winters ago when I was driving Uber. I pulled up to this Christmas party and I picked up two gentlemen. The one was the owner of the oil company, and then the other was one of his employees. As we drove home, as I was driving them home, I was going to drop off the employee first, and then I was going to drop off the owner of the company second. So as we're driving, I was talking to the employee about the Christmas party, and he was just effusive. He was so expressive of how much he enjoyed working at this company and how amazing it was that they had this company that served and treated their employees so well. He was enthusiastic, and I could tell that he wasn't just paying lip service. I could tell he was really genuinely ecstatic. And so I was interviewing him about what made this job so amazing and why was he enjoying it as much as he did. And it was really neat to listen. And the poor owner was just sitting there really uncomfortable as his employee is just like raving about this job, right? And after we dropped off the employee, I turned to the owner and said, "Tell me, what is it that you've done to create such a space in your company that your employees are genuinely satisfied and happy? What is it that you're doing that isn't reflected in most jobs? Because most companies don't treat their employees well." I'll never forget what he said. He said this. He said he and his partner built that company as an excuse to create community. They built the company as an excuse to create community, and that resonated so deeply, so strongly with me. It reminds me of why I do whatever I do. I do it because it gives me a chance to connect with people. When I go back through all my jobs, I can see this common, consistent theme that in whatever I was doing, I was looking for a way to add value and help others in whatever context. As a paper boy, I wanted to do the best I could so that I could bring value to my customers. And when I got to see them along my way, I loved connecting with them and saying, "How's it going? What's going on? How?" And we were able to just jive together. I was able to make that connection with them personally, and so I developed a relationship with my customers, my paper route customers, and they really came to value their paperboy and the service that he gave. I connected with them. I knew their name. I knew that my standard was on the line because of the service that I gave. And so I wanted to make sure that when I placed a paper, a very simple job, that it was something really impacting, really amazing for them. And I really, really value that opportunity. When I worked as a truck driver, I was spending a lot of time alone on the road. But whenever I got to connect with the places where I was making my deliveries, I connected with the people there. So while I was driving, I was feeding my mind with information that really helped me grow in my awareness of this world the way it is. And then it enabled me to have things to talk about with people when I connected with them. In essence, I was feeding my mind so I could feed other people intellectually. And so, love that job. When I was working as a bag boy at a grocery store, goodness, I so was thrilled with that job. I was able to give myself in such an all in way, whereby as I connected with the people there, sure, I was bagging their groceries, but guess what? What else I got to do when I was bagging their groceries and helping them out to their car or helping them find an item in the store. I was able to connect with them in a emotional level. I was able to connect with them on an interpersonal level that brought tremendous value to them. That was amazing. Love those opportunities. When I was a pastor, when I was a teacher, man, I got to interact on an ongoing basis with people, listening to their struggles and their problems and their worries and their fears. And I got to connect intimately with them. I got to help them in meaningful ways. Even presently as an Uber driver, and I'm an Uber driver very specifically because I choose to be one. I choose to invest myself as an Uber driver because this is the job right now that I've found that feeds my soul, gives me the freedom to do what I feel I need to be doing with people. It gives me such tremendous freedom that way. And I know I'm doing really well because currently my rating is at a 5 out of 5. And that's a pretty amazing accomplishment, I would say. That's a pretty amazing affirmation that I'm really good at what I do. I don't always knock it out of the park. There are some people that come along the way and they're like, wow, you're not my jam kind of thing. That's totally all right. But with most people that I get to interact with, I can see that I'm doing such an amazing job. And 5 out of 5 is a really difficult score to maintain when you're about 8,500 rides in. 8,500 rides is a consistent basis of maintaining amazing, excellent service. This gives me tremendous validation that I'm doing something right when I connect with people. So I love my job. Do I love my job? Oh, do I love my job? Man, I love it to the point that even as I continue to build my business, as I build my business, I know that I'm still going to keep on driving for Uber because it gives me a great opportunity to connect with people in organic ways. And I want to keep on providing content for you guys on my memorable Uber Moments series, the Mum series, both on my YouTube channel here and also on my podcasts. I want to continue giving you examples of how I connect with people and how I leave value wherever I go. So these are some of the things I think about when I think about the question, do you love your job? And can I say it's worthwhile considering what this question looks like for you. I would love for you to be able to experience this kind of satisfaction in your own context. What would it look like for you to be able to enjoy your job in such a way that brings you life and energy? I love seeing people who are well matched with whatever they're doing. I love seeing them in the context in which they're like, yes, this hits the happy spot for me. I would love that for you. For most of us, it takes a while to get to that point because it takes an awareness of oneself, a self awareness of oneself to be able to say, here's how I'm wired, here's how the world makes sense to me, here's what I know about myself, to be able to know that I'm making an impact in an amazing way. And it's not always easy to get to that spot, but it's so worthwhile. And I would love for you to experience what that looks like. On my website, biniamasters.com, I'm currently creating a community through the membership tiers that I have there. And the reason I'm doing this is because I would love to share with you these happy things that I've come to discover and experience in my own lifetime. There are things that I've come to learn and grow in my awareness of how this world works, how we work as people. I want to be able to do the three things I'm doing here on this podcast. The three things, what are they? Number one, growing in an awareness of ourselves. Such a critical skill for us to have is to be able to know how we're made of. Most people do not know, I would argue, about themselves well enough. They don't know why they operate in the ways that they do. They don't know why they get ticked off or triggered by some things. They don't know how to be able to understand what they value or want to pursue in life, let alone what they would love to do for a career. They don't know so much about themselves. And so I want to learn, what does it look like to get to know ourselves really well so that we can then learn how to be kind to ourselves. Most of us are so harsh with ourselves. We're so harsh in the way that we think about ourselves and the way we're trying to fumble our way forward. Wouldn't it be fantastic to be in a community where you can learn to be kind to yourself, to learn how to be able to affirm yourself, to be in a community which affirms one another and encourages each other to say, how can you show love to yourself? And then thirdly, how can we experience more happiness? How can we experience more happiness in our lives so that as we go forward in this thing called life together, there's a lot more happy moments that we're enjoying because we're able to process some of the uncomfortable things that come along in life. There's so many uncomfortable experiences that come along. And so what would it look like for us to experience more happiness because we're willing to process a lot of the other necessary and important emotions that may not feel so comfortable? This is the community I'm building on my website, BennyMasters.com. I would love to have you join. I hope to see you on tomorrow's episode. Bye for now.